You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Let's get spooky. This is our station Boo, where we explore the dark and mysterious corners of the world of horror, and we know that you are dying to listen. And welcome to the Spooky and Kooky podcast of Earth Station Boo, where we talk all things horror. Let's introduce our haunted host and some fun guests. We have Lisa.
Hello, Greedy Ghoulies.
We have Karen.
I'm a horrorholic.
I am Shannon, and today we are blessed to have Beth talk with us today.
Hey, y'all.
And we have Mr. Derek from DragonCon's Horror Track also with us.
Hello, everyone.
All right. And today we are talking about the one, the only Tim Burton.
There are a lot of great podcasts that review Doctor Who episodes in order. The Earth Station Who podcast is not one of them. Just like the Doctor, we never know where or when we'll end up, but we'll have a lot of fun talking about it. From classic Who to new series and big finish, join the Earth Station Who crew wherever fine podcasts are found. Earth Station Who is a founding member of the ESO Network.
Hey Horrorholics, it's Shannon. Earth Station Boo has just launched its brand new merch store. It's time to get your hands on some killer gear. From our fun logo shirts, cozy hoodies, Let's Get Spooky stickers, and Horrorholics Anonymous totes, there's something for every one of our lovely little ghouls. We offer our spooky designs on many different types of products to fit your desires. But if you happen to see a missed opportunity, just let us know. And unlike most of Stephen King's adaptations, you know what I'm talking about, you won't be disappointed with the quality of the products. Head over to our link tree in our bio, grab your merch, show off your favorite horror podcast, and most of all, let's get spooky.
All right. So we are going to be talking about Tim Burton, but before we dive into him, I'm going to give Beth and Derek just a minute to introduce themselves. So if you haven't heard them on one of our previous episodes, you get to hear them now. Beth, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Sure. I write paranormal cozy mysteries and romantic urban fantasy. I always tell people that my biggest influences as a writer are Scooby-Doo and Bunnicula because I grew up with those. But Tim Burton definitely played a big role in the shaping of my sense of horror and mystery.
I think he's influenced quite a few of us. Derek, how about you?
As mentioned earlier, I am the director for DragonCon's Horror Track. I have been a programming track director for DragonCon since 2005, so we'll be coming up on 20 years next year. I have a real love-hate relationship with Tim Burton. We'll get into that, I'm certain.
Oh, yeah. We all.
Yeah.
All right. So Tim Burton grew up in Burbank. He worked for Disney, got fired by Disney a million times, but he has definitely been a face of, I call it soft horror. It's a lot of horror that it's easier to consume than others. But everybody, I want you guys to just give me kind of your initial thoughts on him. Maybe a first movie that you saw, your first impressions of him, how you discovered him. Because he is somebody who I think we all found earlier on in life and have watched his stuff until recent. Derek, why don't you go ahead and start us?
You know, it's interesting. My first exposure to the guy was on a behind the scenes of Disney animation special way back in the 80s. I think it was when he was working on The Black Cauldron. Of course, his designs for The Black Cauldron weren't used in the end, but he was working on it at the time. And I remember thinking, that is one unusual fellow. And of course, years later, I did see Beetlejuice, and that was actually when I connected Tim Burton with the filmmaker that he became and we know today. So,
Yeah, completely understandable. Lisa, how about you?
Oh, well, I first was introduced to Tim Burton through my friend Mike Jitlove, who used to also work for Disney. So I also watched that special that Derek is talking about. And yeah, I thought he was rather unusual. And then my dad took me to go see Beetlejuice. And I just kind of liked the whole style that he had. It was like you said, soft horror, but it was so gothicy and unusual that I liked it.
Yeah. No, I can totally agree with you on that. Beth, how about you?
My mom is a huge Pee Wee Herman fan, and back in the '80s, she had a VHS copy of the HBO special that Pee Wee Herman had done. And so, of course, when Pee Wee's Big Adventure came out, we had to go to the movie theater and see it. And that was my introduction to Tim Burton. So I started on not even soft horror, just all out fun and zaniness with Tim Burton.
Okay. Karen, how about you?
I think like my first introduction to Tim Burton might have been it was Beetlejuice followed by Batman. And those were like two different movies. As a kid, I was like, okay, that's weird. But, ever since then, I've grown to appreciate his weirdness, his gothic styles and whatnot. But Batman was just kind of out there. Batman?
It was. And honestly, like if you really think about it, out of like what had previously been done of Batman, it was actually kind of dark for Batman. So now when you think about it, especially compared to like The Dark Knight, you're going, no, that was comedy. That wasn't that dark.
Yeah, it wasn't that dark. I also remember like Pee Wee Herman as well, because I remember watching the show, and when I found out that there was a movie as a kid, my parents were like, okay. So those were like the top three movies I remember as a kid. And then after that was like, oh, Batman? Okay.
Yeah. So for me, the first one that I saw was the Batman movie, but it was at a drive-in theater, and they were doing the two, like you go in for one price and you get to see two, a double feature. And we saw Honey, I Shrunk the Kids on one screen. And then once it finished, everybody kind of basically like turned around and watched Batman on the other screen. And I remember sitting in the back of the car, the seats are all laid out, there's blankets everywhere. My brother and I are just watching that and laughing hysterically at Jack Nicholson. Yeah, so that was my first introduction, but I was a kid, so I didn't know who Tim Burton was. But then when I got into like middle school, high school, so late 90s, early thousands, that's when I started to discover him and fell in love with Edward Scissorhands, fell in love with Beetlejuice, fell in love with Nightmare Before Christmas, fell in love with Sleepy Hollow. And it was just like one of those like down the rabbit hole from there. And it was just one of those deals of I absolutely just love what I see. Doesn't matter what movie it is, I'm sucked in. So I think it's interesting that we all said that he was unusual and we liked it. Considering like one of the most quoted lines from Beetlejuice is, I myself am strange and unusual. So, which is going to be the title of this episode. Fittingly so. Well, what are some fun facts you guys learned about Tim Burton that you were like, yes, I have to talk about this? Lisa, do you want to start?
Yes, actually, since we're talking about the unusual, I was doing some research the other day, and he says he's sad because media portrays him as a weirdo. He's just a normal guy. And I think that's kind of sad because we all like, because he is unusual. you know, to
Yeah.
find something like that, because I think that's what makes him so great, is because he's not normal, or at least in the sense, air quotes. And then I found out something about Willy Wonka. Instead of using computer animated graphics, he had 40 squirrels trained to crack nuts in the scene where Veruca Salt goes down the garbage chute. And I don't know how I feel about that. I think I would have rather have a stop motion animation than teaching a bunch of squirrels.
Yeah.
But it's still kind of cool. But the girls know why I don't like squirrels too much. So.
Yeah. Yeah. But he is a massive fan of practical effects. He thinks it's so much better than
exactly
than the computer stuff. And it's not like he hasn't used it. He obviously has, but he prefers the practical, which I don't blame him for.
No, I think that's what makes him charming.
Right? Karen, how about you?
I recently found out he likes the color black. I mean, he dresses all black because he doesn't like to match. He doesn't like to coordinate. And I'm like,
yeah.
I feel you.
I get it.
I totally get it.
I get
Same
that.
reason.
I'm like, I don't want to color. You know what? Just my whole attire black. Let's just go for that. And then I realized I live in Georgia, so the heat is just so bad. Oh, no. And then I didn't know that him and Danny Elfman have been collabing together forever, like since the beginning of Tim Burton's career. I thought it was just, Nightmare Before Christmas and that was it. But nah, that man's been like, we best buddies. We're going to be friends forever. So I'm like, wow. Wow. But interesting to note, he not only does he like to use Johnny Depp and Helen a lot, he used Christopher Lee in like 5 different films of his. And I was like, Christopher Lee, yay. If I could have met Christopher Lee, y'all, and made my day.
Horror king. Yeah.
Me too.
Yep.
Yep.
And Vincent Price.
Oh yeah, definitely Vincent Price.
Because Vincent Price did the narration for a short film that he did called Vincent.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, to meet him too.
And I recently saw a interview. Actually, no, it wasn't an interview. It was when Burbank announced Tim Burton Day for the city that Vincent Price's daughter came and gave him an honor and said that her father loved working with Tim. And if he had not passed, he would still be doing stuff with Tim.
Oh,
that's cool.
Shout out to Victoria Price for raising money for hurricane victims earlier this year too. So
yeah, she did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she did. But Derek, with that, your turn. What are some fun facts you got?
Well, I mentioned earlier that he was working on The Black Cauldron for a while. That's actually one of my favorite Disney movies, even though it's severely flawed. But I did get to see some of his production design art in Los Angeles when I visited there about a dozen years ago. And I felt like I was touching the monolith by seeing that stuff. Not sure what else, what other factoids I might know, but I'm sure they'll come out as we talk.
Oh, of course. Of course.
I do think it's interesting. He is apparently autistic. So if you have autism, there's another person for you to look up to, I guess.
Yeah.
He's also dyslexic, so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yay, dyslexia, me.
Beth, how about you?
This isn't so much a fun fact as it is just a bizarre memory that I don't know why I've remembered it all these years. I grew up in Central Florida, and I remember when they were filming Edward Scissorhands, there was a news piece about the neighborhood outside Tampa that they used to be the neighborhood, where everything takes place. And they paid the people who lived there to be able to paint their houses in those crazy pastel colors and to put up, the fake shrubberies and things like that. And I just remember feeling so envious that wasn't my neighborhood, that they didn't come to us to paint our houses crazy colors and film there.
Girl, same. I live in Pinellas County, and I'm just like, why couldn't it have been here? But it's not too far away. It's like maybe an hour from where I live. But yeah, no, he's an interesting character. I heard recently that one of the reasons he has not done like the sequel to Beetlejuice sooner is he doesn't like revisiting past works, and that it's very much he's like, no, I've already done it. I want to do something new. I want to do something different. So I don't like going back and looking at things that I've already done. And so I thought that was interesting, that was his kind of philosophy on his works and why he picks what he picks and why he does what he does. And I'm like, I don't know. I thought that was kind of an interesting, fun thing. As I mentioned before, he actually started off with Disney and kind of got started as an animation artist for them. He started with a school program that did a lot of work with Disney and then got kind of brought in, especially since at that era, it was when basically all the illustrators from like Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, all of those illustrators were like, okay, they're going to be retiring and moving out. We need to bring new stuff in. And he was part of that. Like he worked on Fox and the Hound, although he said most of his stuff on that looked like it was dead animals. He goes, so it wasn't really like I did much on that one. Black Cauldron, he also worked on Tron. But then when he did Vincent and then he did Frankenweenie, things kind of just changed for him. And WB swallowed him up and used him for a ton of different stuff. But then he's gone back and forth. And every time he turns around, he's getting fired by Disney at some point.
I mean,
yeah. All right. So with that being said, we're going to actually talk about some of his movies, just his horror stuff. I know he's done like a million things that aren't horror, but we are a horror podcast, so we're just going to stick in that lane. Because otherwise, I don't think we would have enough time to talk about all of his cool projects that he has worked on. But his career kind of sits in multiple little sections. So he had his breakthrough with the Frankenweenie short. Without that, he would not have his career to date. What is y'all's take on the Frankenweenie short? Karen, do you want to start us off?
I remember the Frankenweenie movie that came out, but I don't remember the short. Was it a short before it became a movie?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, then he did a good job because I don't remember watching the short. I remember watching the movie. I like the movie.
The
so young.
The fun fact about the short is that it is the reason he was able to do Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse. Paul actually saw Frankenweenie and said he needs to be the one.
You mean Paul Herman?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I remember watching Frankenweenie when it came out. I didn't realize it was a short until I did research, and I was like, oh, it's a short. I don't know if I could find it, but that's okay.
Disney Plus had it on for like a hot second, the short. I don't think they still do, but they did at one point in time.
Yeah, Disney keeps stuff on and then takes stuff off.
I believe it's also on the Blu-ray for Nightmare Before Christmas, but I could be wrong about that. I know I have a copy of it somewhere on one of the Blu-rays, but
yeah, I think it is on the. I think I have it on the DVD, but I don't have Blu-ray, so it could be on the Blu-ray. I think it's on the DVD for.
It could be on VHS, all we know, because there's so many styles of recording.
Right?
Oh, I know it was released on VHS. I've seen the VHS before.
Yeah, I used to have it somewhere. It's probably on a DVD somewhere.
Yeah.
If you said beta, I'd be like, well, there we go.
I mean, the original Frankenweenie was released in, I want to say, the early to mid 80s. So it's very possible. Beth, what about you?
I'm the opposite of Karen. I've never seen the full-length Frankenweenie, but I have seen the short. I went back and found it after I'd become a Tim Burton fan. But I think for anybody if there is anybody who has never seen one of his movies before, that's kind of a good way to dip your toe in the Burton waters, because it is so typical of his style, where it's a little dark, it's a little weird, but there's also this whimsy to it and even joy to a certain extent. And certainly with Frankenweenie, we can kind of see the origin story of Zero in Nightmare Before Christmas. So I think it's just a good, quick way to be like, oh, this is what Tim Burton is about. This is his aesthetic and his style.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Lisa, how about you?
Oh yeah, I remember when I first saw it, and I mean, I thought it was rather brilliant for its time to have so much whimsy, and it was just kind of magical.
Mm-hmm.
He had all his elements of like she said, it's like you want to learn Tim Burton, watch that. I mean, that's just everything that makes him up. Yeah.
Derek, did you have any other fun takes on Frankenweenie short?
No, other than that, I really like it. That's about all I can add to that.
I think you ladies hit the nail on the head when you said if you want to learn what Tim Burton style is, watch this. I 100% agree. You can see not just the start for Zero, but a number of other characters. Like you can see like an influence on like, this is kind of like a female character he likes to write. This is kind of like the male character that he likes to write. I love the connection between, the kid and the dog, but he has that in so many of his different things. But just even art style wise, you can see the Gothic influence. You can see the weird, big-eyed, thing that he loves to do in almost every single one of his films, especially the stop motion. And so it's definitely a Tim Burton 101. Like you pop this here and that is it. But let's go into his acclaimed era. And it's because of Batman and the success that came with that, he was able to do a lot of these other projects. We'll start with Beetlejuice. Who here loves Beetlejuice?
Who doesn't love Beetlejuice?
I love Beetlejuice.
Right?
I mean, yeah, right?
Just get it out of the way. Who doesn't love Beetlejuice? Then
Right?
you get out the door.
The first time I saw it as a kid, believe it or not, I didn't know what to make of it. I couldn't figure it out. And I had I'm not sure if I like that or not reaction to it. So,
I mean, and that's fair. I mean, it is, again, in another interview, I heard him say, he's like, everybody said it was like all over the place. He goes, I thought it was a pretty good story. And so, you're not alone in that. A lot of people were kind of like, I don't know how to feel about this. Lisa, how about you?
Well, I fell in love with it when I first saw it because it brought back the stop motion animation that I was used to seeing with all the Sinbad movies that my dad took me to. So yeah, it was great. And I wasn't really, I followed the story. I liked it. It was great. It was whimsical and gothic-y and kind of weird, which I liked. I liked all that mixed together. And like I said, I love stop motion animation. And I will have to say that Tim Burton probably brought that back to the forefront for film because it was gone for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden here comes Tim and it's like, oh, we get it back. Yay.
Yeah. Beth, how about you?
I just remember feeling how different it was from anything I had seen before. And I think that now in recent decades, we get a lot more media that is kind of a little bit darker, but humorous, a little bit gothic, but we didn't have anything like that in the 80s and early 90s that blended those things so well. I mean, we had really dark stuff. The first thing that comes to mind is The Dark Crystal. But we didn't have anything that was dark, but also fun. And Beetlejuice was that. And so it was the kind of movie that just, you felt a little breathless when it was over because it was just such a crazy ride. But it was like, oh, but I liked that. Like that somehow resonated with me. And Lydia, certainly I was the right age where I felt like I get it. I understand her. And I still feel that way. The older I get, the more I relate to Delia Dietz, I think. So I don't know what that says about me. But yeah, it was just so different than anything else.
Completely agree. Karen, how about you?
Oh, I love Beetlejuice. Like when I first saw it, it was like, oh, I am Lydia Dietz. That was me. I was like, I want to wear that red wedding dress one day for my wedding. And then, as I grew up, I was like, oh, I'm actually Delia. I'm a combination of Delia and Lydia. I want to go ahead and mesh their styles together and be the weird creative person. But that movie, just awoken something inside me that was just made me feel okay to be weird and unusual.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So That was my love you, Beetlejuice. I always wanted a friend like Beetlejuice, but I don't want him to marry me. So I'm like,
Sorry, that's for Freddie.
I fell in love with the movie Beetlejuice. One, the music in there, so much fun. You can sit there and you can just like groove to it, and it's fun and it's kooky, but you got all the creepy, spooky vibes. I definitely related to Lydia, and still do for the most part, although I think we all realize that we do grow up to be her stepmother a little bit as we get older. but I think that's what is so beautiful about that movie, is that a lot of younger individuals saw Lydia and went, that's me. Yes, I get it. And then they didn't feel so alone. They felt seen because of this film. I will say this, it's a little personal fun fact. Because of this movie and how much I love it, I did end up making out with a guy who was dressed like Beetlejuice at a college party one time. And I have no regrets. Done.
Okay.
All right. So following that, you have Edward Scissorhands, which we talked about. You know, Vincent Price was in that. You have Winona Ryder again. You have a ton of like big name people in that movie as well. How did we all feel about that one? Karen, do you want to start us off on that one?
I guess because I was so young when I watched it, I didn't really much care for it. I mean, yeah, I knew it was a Tim Burton movie, and it was, I grooved on the aesthetic. I loved the story, but it was not like something I would put on my rewatchables.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. Beth, how about you?
I like 2/3 of Edward Scissorhands. Winona Ryder's character just always broke my heart, that she was kind of taking the side of all these other teenagers, and it hurt Edward so much. And so there's, especially with the way that movie ends, it always kind of leaves me feeling so kind of melancholy that for as many things as I like about the movie, and as much as I wanted Diane Wiest to be my Hollywood mom back in the 80s, I don't watch that one very often. It's been a really long time since I've seen it, because when I watch a Tim Burton film, part of it is for like the feeling that I want it to give me. And Edward Scissorhands always leaves me feeling a little sad. And so I usually don't turn to it.
That's fair. Derek, how about you?
Oh, I love it. I had mentioned earlier that with Beetlejuice, I didn't know how I had felt about it because I was young when I saw it. But by Edward Scissorhands, I had gotten more of a footing with his style.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say that I think it's probably his best fantasy film.
Okay.
I certainly wish he would do more stuff like that than doing his version of an IP of some sort. But yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite of his films.
Rock on.
And I was glad I got to see a sneak preview of it before it was released to the general public. I still have the one sheet for the movie around here somewhere. I've been trying to find it because I'd like to get that framed.
That'd be cool. That's actually really cool. Lisa, how about you?
I love the movie. I think it's a great fairy tale, and I agree with Derek. I'd like to see him do more stuff like that. It does leave you a little melancholy because, what's going on and how the people treat him after he's not shiny and new anymore. But that's pretty typical of most people. But I would have to say I went to it specifically because I heard Vincent Price was in it. Because I've been a Vincent Price fan forever, but I really, really like the whole whimsical kind of girl falls in love and just unrequited. I can't say unrequited. I can't talk today at all, and it's just kind of like a magical fairy tale. And even though it is kind of sad and depressing, when she's telling the story, she kind of gives her little granddaughter hope, which I really kind of like because it's like continuing it a little bit. And I love the topiaries. I fell in love with topiaries because of that movie.
There you go.
Topiaries creep me out.
You like The Shining, don't you?
Me?
Well, topiaries, that's Karen who said topiaries creeped her out. So I was thinking the first thing I could think of was The Shining in the book. So,
Oh yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Edward Scissorhands is that movie that after I watched it, I'm like, oh, I should watch this more often than I do. But then I don't watch it that often because like I get to it, I'm like, no, I'm not in the mood to watch this one. Let me watch something else, and I'll gravitate to one of his many other works. But I do enjoy it. I do like it. I like how Edward is so silent in it, but yet he is still so expressive, and you can tell exactly what he's thinking and feeling and everything. And again, it's always this like underdog, unusual, strange character that you feel for it and you fall in love with, and you just want them to live happily ever after, even though it is a slightly darker, more twisted kind of tale. I will say the ending does always kind of bring me down because I want a happy ending for Edward, and that's not what he got. And it always just kind of makes me a little sad.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we're going to go to the next piece of work. Now, he did not direct this, but he did write the original poem, and he was part of the producing side of it. Is Nightmare Before Christmas. It started off as a poem. He went to go and try to get it published. Nobody wanted to publish it. And then it became this beautiful stop animation film that fills every hot topic every Halloween through Christmas season. And most of us little emo goth kids have something that is Nightmare Christmas related. So, how do we feel about this one? Beth, you want to start?
I'm going to confess that when I saw the first previews for Nightmare, I thought, this is weird. I'm never going to go see this. And then we were at Disney World, and Hollywood Studios had this huge display of all the sets and a lot of the characters. And it was amazing to see up close. But I was still saying, this is too weird, though. I'm never going to watch this movie. And then finally I watched it. I think after it had come out on VHS, it was a Blockbuster rental or something. And I fell head over heels in love with it. And what you were just saying, Shannon, about having these characters who are different and don't feel like they fit in, or, you know, like Lydia and like Edward. I mean, even Jack, it fits that same mold where even though he's the Pumpkin King and like he is the guy in his land, he still is having this experience and these feelings that make him feel separated from everybody else, and they don't seem to understand him. So I think that the characters in that movie are just so beautifully done and subtle, but so pretty. And I recently heard somebody say on Facebook that they compare Nightmare Before Christmas merchandise to being like the goth version of Live, Laugh, Love signs, which I thought was hysterical, but also kind of accurate.
Very accurate. Very accurate. Lisa, do you want to go next?
Yes. I remember when I saw it, I fell in love with it. I'm not a big musical fan sometimes. Well, when it comes to like, you know, kids films, or I thought it was going to be more kid. It is a kid film, but it's not. So I like I said, I love stop motion animation, and I just fell in love with it. I was just like, I want more. And it was just beautifully done. And I got the VHS and the Blu-ray in my collection because we watch it every Christmas, and I feel kind of, you know, but yeah, I love it. I love the relationship between Sally and Jack and just everything. And I have to admit, I like the kids when they kidnap Santa Claus. I thought that was in the bathtub.
Lock, Shock, and Barrel.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I liked them.
Derek, how about you?
I'm just happy to be able to say that I also got to see the movie first run in theaters. It makes me feel old now. I mean, but you know, it's weird to think when it first came out, it was like a blip on the radar. Disney took their name off of it and issued it under the Touchstone banner. I think a lot of people didn't know what to do with it at the time. My friends who saw it loved it. In fact, that's why I wound up seeing it myself, is because a friend of mine recommended I go see it. Yeah, I like the movie. Shout out to Henry Selick for doing a great job directing it too.
Yeah, he did. He did a fantastic
did.
job. And he definitely doesn't get the credit he deserves for it, considering
No,
everybody's
he
like,
does
oh,
not.
it's Tim Burton's, it's a Tim Burton
Right.
film. And so they just assume that he directed it. And it's like, nah, he just
Nah.
wrote the original poem. He didn't even write the script. He just wrote the original poem that they wrote the script off of. And then he was part of the the producing portion of it. He helped with like the post-production. But like that was it.
I got to give a shout out to one of the screenwriters, Michael McDowell, a great horror novelist who was taken from us far too young. He was also the creator of Beetlejuice.
Yeah. Cheers to them. I love Nightmare Before Christmas. With my birthday being on Halloween, I feel personally attacked when people start putting Christmas stuff up before Halloween. I'm like, who do you think you are? I will wreck you. And so my only ever concession is Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm like, you want to put that up? Fine. Because it's kind of Halloween too. But that is it. That is the only thing you can put up that is Christmassy related prior to Thanksgiving.
Hey, my nieces love it, though.
Mhm.
I mean, like, they know when Christmas is coming is when we put that on. And they're like, oh, it's Christmas time! And I'm like, y'all weird. But I love you because you get it from me.
Yeah.
Danny Elfman. Hey,
100%.
You know, it's always surprising to me that Oingo Boingo has not had more of a resurgence. I mean, that's what sold me on them was that it's Jack Skellington singing rock music. How that hasn't
Right?
crossed over to a larger audience.
They're starting to get a
It baffles
resurgence.
me.
TikTok is starting to make him a little bit more famous.
Well, good.
Honestly, the past, I would say 2, almost 3 months now,
Yeah.
Danny and his band have come up like every other video on my FYP. And it's one of those like, look, I love Danny, but can I please see some of the other things that I follow?
I mean, that
Yeah.
happens. That happens. That happens.
But his videos are getting thousands upon thousands upon thousands of likes. So I wouldn't put it past that his band is starting to pick up a little bit more, especially now that like people are like, oh wait, that is it, what? I mean, they recently had, what was it? Like, was it In the Bowl that they had like everybody come back and sing their parts for Nightmare?
Something like that. Yeah, something like
Yeah, in
that.
LA.
Yeah.
I have a bragging point. I got to see Oingo Boingo and Susie and the Banshees in concert in a small venue. So it was really cool. And he sounds exactly like he sounds recorded. That's the best part.
Oh, I
Awesome.
believe that.
I believe it.
I
Yeah.
believe that.
Yeah, but it was,
Well,
he's a fun person.
We'll have to do a whole episode just on Danny because
Yes.
Homeboy is absolutely fantastic. And
Yeah.
I will say this, Nightmare Before Christmas, even though story-wise I think it's fantastic, the music is what sells it.
Oh, yeah.
The music is what fortifies
absolutely.
it. I mean, Oogie Boogie song.
Oh,
Like you just
10 page.
you just want to
Yeah.
groove to it. It's got that funky kind of like thing to it where you're like, oh yeah, this is a jam. This is a jam. I even love some of the remixes. Like there's a This Is Halloween like EDM remix that I'm just like, yes. And I just sit there and I blare it.
This Is Halloween is like one of the most remixed songs I've listened to. I mean, you have the Panic at the Disco that did it, Marilyn Manson, there's the EDM there's like a lot of versions. You're like,
there's a country version that's actually pretty good if you like country. So yeah. I mean, I don't want to say this is Tim's most popular work, but I think it's the one that reaches most age brackets.
Yes, it is.
Certainly the most merchandised.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Beetlejuice is trying to give it a run for its money, but definitely the most merchandised. So now we're going to come into a little bit of a lull career-wise for Tim. After kind of like Nightmare Before Christmas, things just kind of like trailed off. And Tim is definitely somebody who says that doesn't matter how successful you are, you still have to bust your butt in the industry, that your next big hit is not guaranteed. You actually have to work for it. So the next big movie that we're going to talk about that's horror related is Mars Attack.
Oh,
Ack, ack, ack.
God, I hated that movie.
So Karen, do you want to go first?
I never, like, when I heard that this was coming out and I watched it, I was like, luckily I didn't spend any money on this because this sucked. I didn't care for it. I was like, oh, I don't, I wanted to like it, but I couldn't like it. It was just, I couldn't. And then they came out with a video game. All right. My friends were obsessed with the video game. They're like, you know what? We don't care for the movie, but the video game's awesome.
I love the video game.
They loved it. And I was like, well, okay. But, I could, to this day, I try to watch it and I'm like, I can't do it. Let's walk away.
That's fair. Derek, how about you?
I love Mars Attacks. I actually have most of the toys they released for it, and I'm looking at one of the flying saucers on my shelf right now. Yeah, it's probably one of his lesser films of the 90s, certainly. But I think it's a lot of fun. I actually rewatched it a couple of months ago, and I had a blast with it. I think it was really funny that it came out the same year as Independence Day, and it almost is like a parody of a big blockbuster type movie. So,
oh yeah.
I remember seeing Independence Day in the movie theaters with my brother.
Lisa, how about you?
I thought it was a fun movie. Wasn't one of my favorites by him, but yeah, it was pretty fun. But I like Mars, sci-fi. One of my friends dresses up like the girl, and she can actually move like her, which is kind of cool. Yeah, but it's a fun movie. The video game was definitely fun. I like that way better than the movie. But
yeah.
I mean, special effects wise, it was okay. He can usually do better.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, it was it's not something I'd watch. It'd be like maybe if I got a weird urge to watch something weirder than I usually watch, I might watch it. But it's not something I want to watch again on purpose if I can help it.
That's fair. Beth, how about you?
I have never seen Mars Attacks. And hearing the very different opinions y'all have of it is making me really want to see it, just to see where I fall on that spectrum. I think that when I do finally see it, I'm going to go into it with the same attitude I had when I finally saw Plan 9 from Outer Space. It's going to be bad, but you can still have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we are planning on doing Plan 9 from Outer Space in January. Recording it in January. I don't know when we're going to release it, but we are planning on recording that one. So if you want to come and join us on that one, you're more than welcome to.
You missed Sleeping Terror.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
So bad. I saw Mars Attack years ago. I think I saw it because I had played the video game and I loved the video game. And I honestly cannot tell you the last time I saw it. It's been so long. And so it's definitely a Tim Burton film. It has his styling. You can tell that it's a him film, but that's kind of about it. You can see the nods to a lot of the Atomic Era horror films, which I do appreciate, but it's definitely not one of his works that I'm personally in love with. But I think he was trying to rediscover himself and he was trying something new, and you can't fault him for that. So, but now we're gonna hop to Sleepy Hollow, which is another film that people are like, this is not a Tim Burton film. They were like, this is not how he normally does things. Some people say this is the least Tim Burton film that he has ever made. What are y'all's takes? Who wants to go first?
I do.
I had a feeling that it was going to be Derek. I had a feeling.
Sleepy Hollow is easily my favorite Tim Burton film.
Mm-hmm.
It's not his best. I think his best is Ed Wood, but I think Sleepy Hollow is my favorite. And until very recently, I would say that Sleepy Hollow was my favorite new movie, but it turned 25 years old this week. So
It did.
I can't really say it's my favorite new movie, but it's one of the rare times where I really was looking forward to a movie and I felt that it delivered without letting me down.
Yeah.
Just thought it was a perfect tribute to the Hammer and AIP Gothic films of the 50s and 60s, and I don't see how it's an unusual film for him at all. I think it has a lot of his trademarks in it. But
that's just what critics say.
Well,
if you go on to a lot of like the review sites, and even Tim Burton has said in interviews, he's like, usually I get told like this film is not something people think is mine because it doesn't seem like it's a film I've made. But
weirdly enough, it's one of the few actual horror films he's made.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So. Mm-hmm. But big fan of Sleepy Hollow.
I think we all are. I said Sleepy Hollow, and everybody's face lit up like, "Ooh, I want to talk about this one." Beth, you want to go next?
I love Sleepy Hollow. It's one of my absolute top Tim Burton films, and I do feel like it seems like a Tim Burton film. Again, we have that outsider. I think the film style is beautiful. The way all the colors are muted, and it just really sets that tone. The costumes are phenomenal. Someday when they make a biopic of me, I hope that Christina Ricci plays me. And I love the soundtrack. I listen to that soundtrack a lot while I'm working. In fact, I was listening to it earlier today. So I just feel like all of the elements come together so well into that film. The music, the set, the costuming, the casting choices that they made. It's just a great movie.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. Lisa, how about you?
Oh, my gosh. I absolutely adore this movie. This is one of my favorites. And yeah, it is. It's definitely had, I don't listen to critics anyway, so, but no, it definitely had a Tim Burton feel, just more of a grown-up Tim Burton feel instead of like it, but it still had all his magic and his whimsy and the outsider, the costuming, everything was just beautifully done. And I watch it a lot. I mean, it's like we were watching it the other day.
Yep.
Yeah. But it's just, I think it's beautifully done for telling that story. Out of all the interpretations of Sleepy Hollow, I think he did a genuinely really good. I think it's the best one I've seen.
I mean,
and I have the book on the making of it. I got lucky, found it at a used bookstore. So I looked through that. I listened to the soundtrack. It inspires me artistically. So, definitely.
Karen, how about you?
This is like the first Tim Burton film my brother took me to see in the theaters. All of the other ones I saw when they were like on, TV or it was rented from Blockbuster. Oh my God, I'm old. So like when my brother took me to see it, I remember watching it and I was like in awe because we all know the story of Sleepy Hollow, but just to, see this remake version, I've seen the cartoon version, and then to see this live action version, I loved this version. And then you had the twist at the end, not really the twist, but you saw who the Headless Horseman was, and I was like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, to this day, that's like one of my favorite films to watch and rewatch. But I was like, oh.
Yeah. No, completely agree. It's like Lisa said, her and I actually ended up watching it one of the days before we recorded an episode. We had both watched it. And we were just like, oh yeah, I just watched Sleepy Hollow. Me too. And it's something that I honestly think I pop it on at least once a month. And that's like at bare minimum. It gets popped on. It is definitely a comfort film. I think what I love most about it, because even though it is probably more on like the horror side of it all, it still has like that romantic gothic vibe. And it has its little bits of comedy where like everybody's, standing there and they're completely straight faced, and Ichabod, who's like, we need to do this, is like, like, or, he just ends up fainting, and, little weird things like that. The horse not cooperating with him, or there's just like all sorts of like little tiny quirks, and you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of funny. But the storytelling is beautifully done. Absolutely beautifully done. And the shots where you can see people's faces in the right way, you can see the shadows, you can see everything he wants you to see and more. And it's just fantastically done. And it's one of those films that you can see that he could go deeper, he can go darker, he can go critically acclaimed if he wanted to, but he chooses to make the stuff that fulfills him. And so I think this is like one of his top tier films, personally. Next on the list is The Corpse Bride. So another stop motion, and you get this fun, like, crazy story. So what do y'all think about that one? Beth, do you want to start?
Sure. I think The Corpse Bride, at the end of the day, it's just a sweet film. For as weird as it is and as dark as some of the themes are, it's a sweet little story. And again, I think before Tim Burton came along, we weren't getting stories like this. We weren't getting this sort of darker kind of gothic storytelling style that he's so good at. And it's just a sweet film, and I really like it.
I mean, what would you do if, you found out you married a corpse and the corpse is like, nah, dude, we're together.
Right.
I think all of us would be in the same boat as him, going, I don't think so. Are we? Is this legal?
Right.
I have questions.
So many questions.
Yeah.
Lisa, how about you?
I thought it was actually, I liked the stop motion, of course. I thought it was pretty cute. I mean, I love the whole gothic romantic style of it and everything, and how it went from the dark grays to the colorful and all that. I mean, it was a little too kid friendly for me, but I appreciate it for what it was, and it's very cute. Not one of the ones that I'd watch like that often. Like maybe if my friends' kids came over, we'd put it on just because, I have to corrupt them with the gothic. But of course. But I appreciate it for what it is. It's just not something I'd watch a lot.
That's fair. Karen, how about you?
It's a cute little story of love and greed and getting your comeuppance. I watched
Karma's
it.
a bitch, and she strikes hard.
Oh yeah, she does strike hard, man. Baron. I watch it at least once or twice a year. I don't know if I my niece has watched it. She enjoys it. I think she enjoys anything that's weird and gothic-y like I do. So the oldest one, the youngest one's kind of like, I don't care.
Derek, how about you?
I like it. I haven't seen it in many years, so I really need to revisit it. But sorry, I can't really add a whole lot to the conversation on this one. So,
oh, that's okay. I think it's an adorable little movie. It's one of those movies that I will pop on when I'm having to like bake a bunch of stuff, that I can just play it in the background, and like, it's cute, it's adorable. It plays, I'm happy. I sing along to a couple of the different songs in there. But if you actually go and you look at it, the story is quite fascinating. You have the classism going on. You have the people who marry for this reason and that reason, so that way they can get ahead. But then you have the individuals who are all going through their own personal stuff too. So there's depth to it, but it is a kid's film, and it's digestible for the kids as at the same time. So like, you're not completely bored as an adult while watching it, but the kids get a lot out of it too. Then last but not least, out of this little section is Sweeney Todd. And we've already done a slight talk about it because we had Sarah Rose from the Fans of Theater group at Dragon Con. She came on and we talked about the theatrical, and we kind of compared it to the movie a little bit. But what's y'all's take on the movie Sweeney Todd? Derek, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, it's fine. I think I love the look of the film. I'm not really a musicals person, so
That's
and
fair.
obviously I knew it was a musical before going in. So, but yeah, it's fine. It's certainly the best film he had made in years at that point because he was going through a pretty dry spell, I think. Yeah, it's probably one I need to rewatch. I certainly like the whole grand guignol of it all. So
Very much. Yeah, very much. Karen, how about you?
I love this movie. I like have the soundtrack and I listen to it like once a month alongside with Repo, the Genetic Opera. And I saw it in the theaters with my brother and I think his girlfriend at the time, which is my sister-in-law. And he was like, "Why didn't y'all tell me this was a musical?" And we're like, "We thought you knew." I mean, so every time a song comes on, I'll look over to him. He's like, he dazes out until like, the lyrics come on. Dialogue comes back on. I'm like, wow, you're just missing like majority part of this movie, man. So wonderful, so great. Mrs. Lovett.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Mrs. Lovett. Lisa, how about you?
Oh man, I saw this in the movie theaters and I fell in love with it. Like I like musicals to a point. I like the unusual musicals. My favorite musical is Tommy. But anyway, I really love the sets and I love the whole feel of it. It was just great, atmospheric. It actually kind of grossed me out a little bit too, which is very rare. But when the cockroaches in the pie, yeah, no. Eh. But it was fantastic. I'd seen the play like on TV a while back, but I don't know. This is just really. I think it's one of his better movies, that modern movies.
Yeah.
So I like it. I definitely recommend. I do watch it at least once a year. At least once a year. Sometimes I do the Sleepy Hollow, and then I go to Sweeney Todd. So I might do the double theater.
Yeah.
But I have the soundtrack and everything. So yeah.
Rock on. Beth, how about you?
First of all, Lisa, Tommy is also my favorite musical, so yay.
Yay.
But for Sweetie Todd, first of all, we get to hear, oh my gosh, his name just is totally escaping me.
Alan Rickman?
Yes, thank you. Alan Rickman singing. I was like, his name's not Rick. Thank you, Alan Rickman. We get to hear him singing. And I think, I love musical theater and I've seen a lot of movie adaptations of musicals. And I think it's extremely hard for filmmakers to get it right. I was really excited when they announced that Tim Burton was tackling Sweeney Todd because it was like, oh yeah, perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And I think that Helena Bonham Carter is perfect casting as Mrs. Lovett. I mean, I've read about how hard she had to work to learn how to sing for that role, but I can't imagine anybody else playing that part in this particular adaptation.
Same. Yeah, I think the fact that he obviously respects the original works and the respect that he has for anything that he is pulling from, you can just tell that it's like, okay, I'm going to try to be as good to the original source material as I can. And he just knocked it out of the park for me. As I kind of stated in the Sweeney Todd episode that we did, this movie was not for the people who already were in love with the musical.
Yep.
This is for the people who've never seen the musical, who wanted to experience it, but in a film format. And he knocked it out of the park. I mean, there was the music, but then you had those moments in between, and those moments in between were still absolutely amazing. The costuming, absolutely awesome. The attention to detail was there. And so you have to give it to him. Even with this being considered one of like his lower points as a director, this is a top tier film, in my opinion. But now we're going to go into a little bit of a lull, more of a lull. This is when I think he only had a couple of works that he did between 2010 and 2021 that had released.
Dumbo is the bomb.
I forgot about that one.
The what?
Me too.
Yeah. But he only did a few works. He wasn't knocking out project after project after project. And one of those that is on the horror related side is Dark Shadows, which is a previous work that he did do an adaptation to. And it gets, I can already hear it, it gets mixed reviews. Heavily mixed reviews. So Lisa, what is your opinions on it?
I hated it. I used to watch Dark Shadows, and there was too much comedy in it. I mean, I didn't like it at all. I mean, it was, I give kudos to the actors, but it was just too campy for Dark Shadows. That's it. It just kind of took away from the whole Barnabas and all that.
That's fair.
I didn't like it. I mean, pretty sets and everything, but yeah, no.
Okay.
Blah.
Karen, how about you?
Yeah, no. Yep. I'm gonna be like Derek, because y'all didn't hear him sigh in the background. He was like,
I did.
So I'm gonna be like Derek. I mean, I was a big fan of Dark Shadows as a kid because me and my mom would watch it together. And I was like, oh, they're gonna do Dark Shadow. What is this?
Exactly.
I was so disappointed. And I never let my mom watch that because it would disappoint her, hurt my little mom's heart.
Look at you being a good daughter, protecting your mom.
I mean, I watched Sharknado with her, so
so you're not a good daughter. Got it. Joking.
I'm joking. Who watched it first. I didn't tell her where there was a part 3 to it. She know that there's a part 1 and 2. We ain't gonna go in part 3.
Are you gonna tell her about the Catnado one?
No.
And I think there's one with gators.
Yeah.
Gatornado?
Gatornado. Yep. Yeah. It takes place in Florida.
Of course.
Of course.
So Derek, go ahead. You have your ugh.
Well, this movie is like a Dear John letter. For years, especially after Sleepy Hollow, I was like, Tim Burton would make a great Dark Shadows movie. And then it was announced that he was indeed making the Dark Shadows movie. And I was like, this is going to rule. And he kept putting it off for years after years. And I was like, well, he's going to come back and he's going to make this Dark Shadows movie. It's going to be awesome. And then I saw the trailer. And I was like, okay. I tried to rationalize it in my head. I was like, okay, they're just trying to advertise it in some weird way. It's going to be fine. Then I went and saw it at the movie theater. And the first 10 or 15 minutes of the movie are actually quite good. And I was like, this is going to be okay. It's going to be all right. And then it wasn't. I think, and the sad thing is it looks great. He had the budget. He had the cast. I mean, that was a stacked cast. But what was missing? A good story. I mean, you watch something like Crimson Peak, and you think this is the tone that the Dark Shadows movie should have had.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But instead, they zeroed in on like the flubs and some of the mishaps that would happen on the set of the show and tried to make the movie based around that instead of actually trying to make it more of a tribute to what the show was going for. So I don't know. I still have it on Blu-ray because I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess. But but honestly, I just can't see it being from the same guy who made Sleepy Hollow. It is a mess.
It was.
It was such a mess.
Beth, what about you?
I agree with everything that has been said so far. Like Lisa said, it was too camp for me. I think of Dark Shadows as being kind of like a gothic horror soap opera. And they tried to make the film like funny and silly, and it just didn't work. And I mean, talk about a film not feeling like a Tim Burton movie. It just didn't have the heart that his
Yeah.
films tend to have. And that was really lacking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies that I had to remove it from its original inspiration in order for me to enjoy watching it. And it's like once you take out the previous Dark Shadows, you could get away with some of the things that they got away with. I wonder though, with this film, because this is in 2010, 2020 range, there was a lot of production studios that were doing edits without the director's consent.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And I'm wondering if this was one of those products that got some high execs going, no, we're going to change this because we don't like it. Not that it was correct. I'm wondering if that's what happened, because I feel like it lost some of the respect for the original work. And Tim is usually pretty respectful to the original works from like what you can see from some of his other projects and things that he's worked on. So I'm wondering if there was some higher ups pulling some strings with the edit.
What I heard was that there was so much vampire content being made at the time that the studio actually told him to make it a comedy, to make it a little different than what was being out at the time.
Well, there was a lot of vampire stuff coming out at that point.
Yeah.
Wasn't Twilight coming out at that point?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the face. You got the.
Yeah, we're all going.
Dark Shadows could have had like so much potential.
I know, really. It really could have.
Tim Burton actually later tried to claim that the whole thing was Johnny Depp's idea and he had just gotten roped into it and he didn't really have any real connection to the material. But I'm just like, man.
I call bullshit.
Excuses.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm calling shenanigans on that. But now we have the full-length feature film of Frankenweenie. Karen, do you want to start us off since you got so excited?
Frankenweenie. It's like it's every child's dream to her love with their pets and can't live without their friends. They want them to come back to life once, they die. And then, Victor Frankenstein, little Frick there wants to bring his friend back. And I understand, but this is like, sometimes you just have to let go, okay? I know you want your friend back, and I know he wants to be back with you. But at the end of the day, just let him cross over, like, the Rainbow Bridge, because you don't know what's going to happen. Like in the movie, his friends steal his idea and bring back all their dead pets. Okay? This is not Pet Cemetery, all right? We can't bring around all our dead pets because they have some consequences. And there was some consequences. So, yeah, this is my Jamie Jam.
Who else would like to talk about the full-length version of Frankenweenie?
I have not seen it, but Karen has just convinced me I need to go get it immediately and watch it.
It's very enjoyable. I believe Disney Plus has it.
I loved it 100%. It was absolutely adorable.
Derek, how about you?
I like it. I do prefer the original short, though.
Yeah, that's fair. I like that it's the full-length version, so you get a little bit more to the story. You get to see a little bit more of the influences for some of the other characters that he's created in his other works. Sparky, he deserves his little spotlight. He was a good dog, and all good dogs, deserve to have their stories told. So, but now we're going to kind of come into present day and this resurgence for Burton, and it started with Wednesday. Tim has said that he has always found an affinity to the Addams Family. He grew up reading the comics and watching the old school show, and he always loved Wednesday. So he felt like he should definitely be part of this project. What do you guys think about the TV show that is now I think they just wrapped up their second season filming. So what do you guys think about this one? Beth, do you want to start us?
Sure, because I love Wednesday. I, of course, grew up watching, the Addams Family TV show, but the movies are what I really connected with. Again, Wednesday Addams is kind of like Lydia Dietz. It's like,
yeah,
I get this child. I relate to this person. And so the TV show, I think, it's almost, I mentioned before that Scooby-Doo was a huge influence on my writing. There's a bit of a Scooby-Doo vibe to the Wednesday TV show with the whole mystery that they're trying to solve. And I think it's such a fun series. And obviously I was so tickled that they brought in Christina Ricci to play a part, because it was just the perfect nod to that old school Wednesday that, I grew up with.
Oh yeah, of course. Like, I don't think she would have allowed them to make it without her being part of it in some fashion. Because she loves the Addams Family and anything that has to do with it. So I totally get her going, no, I will be present. Derek, how about you?
I like it okay. To be honest with you, I think it kind of misses the point of the Addams Family by dropping Wednesday into a setting where there's other weird and supernatural beings. I mean, part of the Addams Family is seeing how they interact with normal people. So I think Jenna Ortega does a fantastic job, though. I think, what's his name? Luis Guzman?
Yeah.
I mean, perfect casting. People can say what they like, but he looks so much like the original Charles Addams cartoons.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just think the writing for the character didn't do it justice.
Right. I didn't think he had a whole lot of chemistry with Morticia either, which is kind of a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, I enjoyed it. I'll watch the second season when it comes out. Because I liked it more than I didn't like it. And of course it had Fester in it, and that's always a good thing too. So
oh yeah. And supposedly Fester's coming back and having a bigger role in the second season.
He's getting his own spinoff.
Yes, he is.
Oh.
Who doesn't love Fester?
And Fred Armisen was a good casting choice for him.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Except for Debbie. If Debbie would admit that she was weird and kooky like them, they would have loved her in her pastels and things.
And that's the thing. All she had to do was admit that she was weird and kooky, and there wouldn't have been any issues.
Right.
Lisa, how about you?
I actually enjoyed it very much. I love the set. I really like the sets. I like the whole Scooby-Doo vibe mystery that Beth is talking about. It definitely had me engaged. Lewis makes a fantastic. He's perfect. Yeah, I agree that I would have liked more dynamic with him and Morticia. It just doesn't seem like they're meshing as well as they should. But yeah, I really do like this, and Ortega, she does a fantastic job. I mean, I was really impressed with how she did it. And yeah, I like the fact that they stuck the old Wednesday in there apart. That was kind of cool. But yeah, I enjoy that, and I look forward to the second season.
Same. Karen, how about you?
Okay, it's not my fave, but it's not my hated. Derek said, I would probably prefer her in a normal school setting to see how she'll interact with all the other, normal kids. Because that's what I grew up on, like reading the comics and, watching the show, how they interact with normal people, but it was good. Jenna Ortega, I think her name. She always plays a moody teen. Like, if you ever see every single the movies I've seen, I'm like, oh, you're a moody teen. Okay, I know what this is gonna be about. But I did love the fact that they brought Christina Ricci in. I love love Mr. Guzman. He looked like Gomez. I was like, it's Gomez.
Yeah.
It's the original
Yeah.
Gomez. And people are like, pooping on him. It's like he's not Gomez Adams. I'm like, y'all looking at like, the
Yeah.
movie. You need to look at the comics, man.
Yeah,
That's,
exactly.
that's Gomez. That's like my
Yeah.
first husband. Okay. No one gets rude with my first husband. But I think who the actress that they played, like they got to play Morticia.
Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Yeah, she was okay.
Yeah.
She wasn't my first choice.
Yeah.
Probably what's her name? Eva Green.
I was about to say her.
Yeah.
She would have been
Like,
perfect.
she would have been perfect.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, I could see those two together. Her nice.
I wonder if she's too young. Because you have to think like how old Wednesday is now. So I think Catherine and Louise are age appropriate to be like her parents. I don't think Eva would be. I think she'd be too young.
Oh, she was born in the 80s.
Yeah, but you're thinking what? Wednesday's what, 17 in this?
She'll have been
So
40. She's like my age. I should have like a 17-year-old now.
But that doesn't match the timeline for
True.
for Morticia and for Gomez. If you're doing it by timeline and like how old like each one would have been, I think she would have been too young for a casting. But she would make an amazing Morticia. But she is our gothic queen when it comes to horror. Personally, I absolutely love Wednesday. I actually liked the fact that she was around other weird individuals because they constantly talk about in the show, in the cartoon, in the movies, that they have this crazy family member and that crazy friend. And there's always these connections all over the place. This gives her those connections that her parents had, that her parents talked about. And so I kind of like that she's there. And the first episode, we know why she's there. It's because she's been kicked out of all the regular schools and she isn't accepted in them any longer because she does not act the right way. And I mean, sicking a bag of piranhas on the swim team, probably not the best idea. But I like how even amongst the quote unquote weirdos, she is still an oddity because she isn't like them. She just does her own thing. And so I think it is kind of interesting, but I think it's also kind of cool because you can see the growth where she goes, oh, I am odd, but they're also odd, and that's okay. We can coexist. And it's that like learning how to coexist that is kind of cool and would then translate further on down the road for the character into coexisting with the normies. But I think it style-wise, it was perfect. I love the fact that Tim Burton insisted on a real hand for Thing and to have a real hand actor. And so it wasn't CGI, mumbo jumbo. It was, no, that was a real hand. And I think that was kind of cool. I like how he stuck to his guns on certain things where he's like, no, we're doing the practical on this. Last but not least, the movie that released this year, a fan favorite, Beetlejuice. What did we think about this one? I thought this was a fun one. Lisa, you want to start?
Oh, I actually went in kind of worried because I saw the trailers and I'm like, oh my God, he's doing CGI. It's going to be awful, And then I went in there and I fell in love with it because he still stuck to his guns. It was a good story. It really was. I enjoyed it. I got the bob head to drink out of and it was, yeah, there were a lot of jokes about that. But anyway, no, I really liked it. It was very refreshing, and it was good to see the cast basically back together.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a couple missing, but it didn't matter if they were missing. It was like still really good. I really enjoyed it.
I will, before everybody else chit chats on this one, I will say I really do appreciate the way that they were sensitive to the fact of the one individual who we will not name and what they have done and why why they were not featured in the film the way they could have been. And then I think it was also wise how they had the other two not featured because they aged and it wouldn't make sense for a ghost to age. So I think they did that pretty respectfully as well.
Absolutely.
But now we'll continue. Sorry, I had to put my
no. It's cool. I love the sandworms. I like the sandworms. I really was glad they kept the claymation or the stop motion. I will say I wasn't really thrilled about the villain. I didn't feel like she had enough substance. I mean, there was a brief blurb about her, but it was like, I like the rest of the story, but that thing about her was like, it could have been another story to me. At least that's my opinion. But everything else was really great. I enjoyed it.
Okay. Beth, how about you?
I was cautiously optimistic when I went to the theater because I wanted to love it, but I didn't know if, that magic would still be there. And certainly there are things I would have done differently. But overall, yeah, like you said, Shannon, it was just a fun movie. It was great to see all the practical effects. It was great to see the dynamics between the characters. And I discovered that when, 14-year-old me related to Lydia Dietz back in the first movie, 46-year-old me still relates to Lydia Dietz. I feel like it's still like, I get her. I understand her. I feel like there's still that connection with that character. And I had not anticipated that. It was just a fun time. And I think that if you go into it just ready to have a good time and not try to nitpick little, flaws in the plot or what have you, then you can have a good time with it.
Oh, yeah. Derek, how about you?
My feelings on it were kind of conflicted. I really enjoyed watching it, but I also didn't find it particularly funny. And for a comedy, that's kind of a big thing, I felt that the story was overstuffed. Like there were too many narrative dead ends. I felt, certainly the stuff with Beetlejuice's ex-wife.
Yeah,
that should have been the third movie. That they shouldn't have even brought that into the second one. But no, I enjoyed it. It certainly felt like a Tim Burton film, and while it was a sequel, it felt like he was getting back to making a Tim Burton movie as opposed to following an IP or doing something very strange, and not in a particularly good strange way.
Completely understandable. Karen, how about you?
To be honest, I didn't watch it yet. I know what goes on in the story because all my friends told me about the story. Well, never mind. I don't have to watch the movie now. But I do want to watch it because of the fact that I do love Beetlejuice, but all the conflicted, man, this was kind of sucks because of blah, 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 blah. Like, man, this is great because of blah. I'm like, do I really want to watch it?
I say watch it.
You do. You want to watch it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely watch it.
Okay. The reason I say watch it, if you love the original, you will love this one because it does pay homage to the original. There's a lot of ties. There's a lot of callbacks. There's cute little moments where you're like, oh, that's like straight from the original. And so just for the nostalgia factor, you have to go see it.
Okay, I think I'll watch the original with my niece, and then we'll watch the second one together.
But overall, I think it was extremely enjoyable. I did like the Ghost Kid twist. I thought that one was kind of fun. And yeah, the bride, either have it be like I don't know. It either needed to be more or to be way less. Like, I don't know. It just, what was there was just a weird mix of whatever it was. But I loved the dynamic between everybody. I loved how Lydia, connected with her daughter, and you could see the just different personalities meshing differently. But then when you see them together with, Jenna's dad, it was like, oh, it all makes sense. And, you could see how it worked. And of course, you have Delia doing all of her crazy shenanigans, and it's not surprising how she gets where she gets. But it's very much back to the basics when it came to Burton. Very much you got the crazy kooky, you got the spooky, you got the weird angles, the unusual individuals, but it all works. It all works. It's definitely like a new one. I really do enjoy it. So now that we've talked about all these fun films, we're going to kind of go over some of the favorites that we have. And we're going to hit 3 different kinds of favorites. We're going to talk about a favorite from like the list that we just did. We're going to talk about a stop motion one that we think is our favorite, as well as a non-horror fan favorite. Alrighty, but we'll start with the film from the list above. Lisa, which one was your favorite?
Got to be Sleepy Hollow.
Fair.
That's definitely my favorite out of all of them.
Karen, how about you?
Nothing's gonna harm you. Not while I'm around. Nothing's gonna harm you. No, sir. Not while I'm around.
Sweeney Todd. Beth, which one was your favorite?
I have to go with Nightmare Before Christmas.
Are you going to sing This Is Halloween for us?
I am not. I am not going to sing for something that's going to be on the internet.
No, you're good. You're good. Karen just likes to break out in song randomly throughout most podcasts, so you're good.
Well, Karen can sing better than I can.
Derek, which one is your favorite from the list above?
Oh, Sleepy Hollow. That's easy.
That's a good one. That's a good one. It honestly depends on the day which one is my favorite, but I'm probably going to go ahead and say Beetlejuice. It's the one I've been watching the most recently, so probably that one. Although if you asked me a couple days ago, I probably would have said Sleepy Hollow, and if you asked me 3 weeks ago, I probably would have said Sweeney Todd. But yeah, I think right now Beetlejuice is my favorite from the list above. Now, when it comes to stop motion, which of the stop motion ones is everybody's favorite? And it's okay if it's the same one from like the list above. Karen, do you want to start with this one?
Boys and girls of every age, would you like to see something strange? Yes. Not favorite for Christmas.
That's a fair one. That is a fair one. Derek, how about you?
Vincent.
That's a good one. That is a good one. Lisa?
Nightmare Before Christmas.
And Beth?
Well, I feel like I should have answered with like an actual film instead of stop motion the first time. So let me alter my original answer to Beetlejuice.
Okay.
With Sleepy Hollow a close second. Stop motion, of course, Nightmare Before Christmas for me.
Yes. I will have to say I think Nightmare is my personal fave as well for the stop motion. But he has so many that are so good that it's really hard to choose. And now we're going to go to our non-horror, because he has a huge collection of non-horror stuff as well. And I know even some of the stuff that we mentioned on this list are technically considered like dark comedy or something like that, not necessarily horror specific. But like I said earlier in the podcast, I call it soft horror. It's like the gateway drug to horror, like gives you the spooky and kooky without being scary. So what is everybody's favorite non-horror? Derek, do you want to start this one?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Ed Wood. There's no question. It's a definitely close relation to the films we've been talking about already, but I actually think Ed Wood is his best film overall. And a close second to my favorite after Sleepy Hollow. I just think it's a masterpiece.
Fair. Lisa, how about you?
I would have to say the second Batman he did. I love the aesthetics of everything. It's got a great cast. I love Catwoman in there. She's my favorite one besides Julie Newmar. But I just like the whole gothic, noir, dark feeling of everything. And I think, and I love all the penguins that Stan Winston Studios did and everything. So that's got to be my favorite non-horror of his that I like. I really like it. It's kind of got that Metropolis feel to me.
Rock on. Karen, how about you?
James and the Giant Peach. I love James and the Giant Peach.
One. That is
I love Mrs. Spider. I love all the invertebrates. I love his chosen family. And I love peaches. There's billions of peaches. Peaches for me. Millions of peaches. Peaches for free.
See, I'm sitting here thinking of Jack Black's Peaches, 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 Peaches. Beth, which one is your favorite non-horror Tim Burton film?
Well, we have established that I do not sing, unlike Karen. But I will say, there's no basement in the Alamo. Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I quote that movie way more than I should.
Rock on. I am going to say this. I think Big Fish is my favorite non-horror Tim Burton film.
Such a good film.
First, I'm in love with Ewan McGregor. He's a fantastic actor. I love that story. I love that. Actually, when he did that one, it was just after the passing of his own father, so it was kind of cathartic for him to make this film. And that was me as a kid. I had all these big imaginations and, a story could be exaggerated so much. And I loved it. I think the storytelling's fascinating. I think it's just a fun adventure to watch. But let's talk now, kind of more like, as we've talked about his works, we talked about how he kind of has gone through some slumps and he's made some stuff that hasn't been so great. And then he's made some stuff that's just been killer. What do we think about his impact on horror and Gothic stories as they're told in the industry and just everything he's done since he got in back in the early 80s? Karen, do you want to start?
For me, he is in his own right. I haven't seen or found another director or writer like Tim Burton. And I think he's this like own man. Like he has his own little niche. And even though it's like a world that people could, participate in, you don't have that many that I've seen. So for me, I mean, although he has impacted horror or dark comedy, I don't see a lot of writers or directors or producers like him. And I want to see more of, this Gothic horror. Because it can't be solely on one man's shoulders. I mean...
and he's not a young man anymore.
So. He's not a young man anymore. And I will cry and mourn his death. I will take a day more like my uncle died. Who's younger doesn't matter. My uncle died.
Uncle Tim.
Uncle Tim died.
Uncle Tim.
But you don't have, a lot of anybody like him. And I find it sad. I really do. Because he created a little niche right there, and people walk on in, play around in it, have fun, be weird, accept your unique side.
Yeah.
Don't conform.
Beth, how about you?
I think it's just great to see such an original voice in the entertainment industry. And I think that Tim Burton has proven that there is an audience for stuff that's weird and offbeat and a little bit dark without being full on horror. And we're out there, and we are legion. We are ready for more content like this.
Yeah.
Just give it to us.
Give us the films and then give us the great merchandising to go with it, and then everybody's happy.
Right?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Lisa, how about you? What is your take on it all?
Yeah, he is kind of like his own little niche. I agree with that. I do think he has inspired some other people. Unfortunately, they're too colorful, so it's like, this is not as engaging. But he did inspire everybody to get back into stop motion and animation, which I think is great. But yeah, it's hard. It's the fact that he's like bringing more gothic. I'm really hoping people will kind of follow it a little bit more. I mean, he is his own person, and it's nice to see in Hollywood because everybody's the same. So kind of need to get a little creativity, and I'm glad that he has the people to work with who he does.
Yeah.
Well, like the others have said, he's a pretty singular voice. I don't really see a lot of major impact on other horror writers. It seems like his influence has been more aesthetic on like merchandising and things like that. I'd say. So
Okay. I think he's influenced more than what people want to admit. Even like with the Batman stuff that we talked about earlier, he made Batman dark for the first time. And look at the road that it's gone down, where there are moments in like the Dark Knight trilogy that Nolan did that could be considered horror because they were the scenes were just so dark. I think he has influenced definitely the stop motion and practical effects portion because he is such a lover of those things and he sticks to that. I think the way that he tells a story and how he does the shots and everything, it has influenced others. Now, have they gone and done their own twist? Yes, of course, because that's what you do as an artist. You get inspired by something and then you make it your own. But he is ever evolving, but he is still always himself. And I have massive respect for directors and creators who do that. Like Wes Anderson is another creator that does the same thing. Like you can spot a Wes Anderson film from a mile away. You know exactly what it looks like. And that's Tim. Even the stuff that people think doesn't quite seem like a Tim Burton film is very much a Tim Burton film. If you know him as a director and as a creator, you can see it a mile away. And I think he's going to inspire people for years down the road because he's opened the door. He's brought the opportunity for others to expand. But let's go ahead and wrap up this episode. Let's do some final thoughts. We'll make these quick because I know this is a slightly longer episode than we normally do. But Lisa, go ahead and give us your final thoughts and what you hope for him as a creator.
My final thoughts is I've always enjoyed his movies, whether they're my cup of tea or not. I mean, there's always some kind of fun element. And of course, I love the practical effects since I do that myself. I'm really hoping that we get more stories like Sleepy Hollow and Sweeney Todd, and maybe he'll come around and fix the Dark Shadows incident. That's what I'm going to call it, the Dark Shadows incident. Because he's always got great cast members and everything. So I'm hoping he continues on this dark, gothic, quirky storytelling with whimsy and magic and everything. Because we need it. We really do. We really do need that more. Because it's like we need more people with his imagination just to go in there and wrestle around. That's what I'm really hoping.
Okay. Beth, how about you?
I would love to see more original content from him instead of doing these existing franchises. I think his best work is oftentimes the original stuff like Beetlejuice. So fingers crossed that we get some more of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Karen, how about you?
I want to see a full version of Sweeney Todd, like a full, straight up. Give me like from start to finish, all the songs, all the acting. I don't care if it's 4 hours long. I'll sit there and watch it. I'll sing along to it. I want the full version. But unfortunately, they'll have to recast Alan Rickman, and that's gonna break my heart.
Always does.
But I want to see more works. I want to see more stories, more stop motion, more original stories. I want him to live long and prosper. Be 100 years old, so my children. Well, I'm not gonna have children, so my nieces could like continue to watch your stuff.
That's fair. Derek, how about you? What do you hope for from Tim?
Well, I fall in the more original material camp. I would prefer him to stay away from established IPs and just do original stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. I think he's a fantastic director, animator. I love the stories that he comes up with. And like you all said, I really do hope he sticks to making his stuff, not somebody else's. Because he just does a fantastic job with it. Knocks it out of the park, and it's almost pure. And like pure Tim is fantastic Tim. I see that he has now started to look back at his old stuff. So there might be some more things that get retold or get changed up, but he's a creative mind, and I just want to see that mind go to work. Which Tim Burton film that we talked about tonight is your favorite? Listeners, our lovely little ghouls, come tell us. You can find us on all of the social media things. So like Instagram, TikTok, X, Threads. Our Facebook group is always hopping. So please come join that, chit chat with us. You can also subscribe and rate us on any place that you watch or listen to podcasts, such as Apple, Google, Spotify, and YouTube, which you better be leaving some cool comments about what you love about each of these films, as well as which one is your favorite. But folks, where can they find you? Because obviously, you guys are awesome. We love having you on here, and I want our lovely little ghouls to find you all as well. Beth, where can they find you?
You can find me at bethdolgner.com, DOLGNER, and my links to my social media are on my site to make it easy for you. And you can find my books on Amazon.
Rock on. Derek, where can they find you?
Look for Dragon Con Horror Track on Facebook, and that should take you to my page. So,
rock on. Lisa, where can they find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram. You can find me on TikTok, Takes Two Girls. You can find me on, oh my God, I just went blank. Not Twitch, but the Instagram thing, the other one. Oh, well, anyway.
Threads? You
can find me on... Yeah, Threads. That's it. Sorry. It's been a Monday.
That is okay.
But yeah, and soon you'll see me on YouTube because we're going to start, me and Amanda are going to start doing some weird shit. So,
right on. And Karen, where can they find you?
Tender lumplings everywhere. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, formerly known as X, Threads, Instagram, TikTok, and Reddit.
And you can find me, Shannon, on all the things at Spilled Tea Wine Media Mind. And before we go, like always, thank you, our lovely little ghouls. We couldn't do this without you. We really do appreciate your support. Every like, share, it means the world to us. And Beth, Derek, thank you both so much for coming on and chit-chatting with us about these things. You guys are both a pleasure to have on here. We always have so much fun. So yeah. Thank you all. I hope you guys had fun. And again, our lovely little ghouls, thank you so much. So stay spooky. And this has been the Spooky and Kooky podcast of Earth Station Boo.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.